Welcome to Stories Channel, where the shadows whisper and reality isn't always what it seems. Tonight, we'll step into stories that chill the bones, like a faceless figure that has haunted someone for decades and a strange humanoid that appeared silently on a quiet afternoon in Brazil. Keep your eyes open, because once these stories reach you, you may never feel truly alone again. This is a story about a voice that knew exactly who I trusted. A voice that waited until the house was quiet, the lights were off, and no one else was watching. Some encounters don't leave marks. They leave questions. And the worst ones are the questions you're still asking years later, in the dark. In 2023, I was 18 and just a few months away from graduating high school. My life was small back then. Classes, weekends, and the same 3 friends I trusted completely. 2 girls and 1 guy. I'll call them Jess, Bella, and Ben. Bella and Ben were dating, and they lived together in this massive, aging house that looked like it had been built long before anyone thought about comfort. The kind of house with uneven floors, old wooden beams, and doors that never closed quite right. Because they lived on their own, their place became our regular hangout spot. Weekends were always spent there, sometimes studying, sometimes drinking, sometimes just wasting time together. Despite its size, the house had only 1 usable spare bedroom upstairs. 1 room was taken over entirely by reptile tanks, snakes, lizards, heat lamps humming softly day and night. Another room was in the basement. The basement wasn't normal. You could only get to it through a crawl space under the house. Low ceiling, dirt floor. The air down there felt heavy, like it didn't move properly. Bella and Ben's old roommate had lived down there before moving out, not long before we became friends. I refused to sleep there under any circumstances. Sometimes we drank down there though. I hated it, but curiosity always won. Bella and Ben were very open about the house being wrong. They talked about hearing loud footsteps above them at night, like someone pacing across the roof. They saw figures move in their peripheral vision. Objects would be left somewhere and turn up in places no one remembered putting them. Paranormal activity, they said, like it was just another quirk of the house. Jess and I were curious. We messed around with dowsing rods in the basement, asking stupid questions we didn't really believe would be answered. I didn't believe in ghosts, not fully, but I believed in inviting things you shouldn't. I hated Ouija boards. I believed owning one, used or not, was like leaving your front door unlocked and hoping nothing wandered in. Bella and Ben owned one. It sat untouched in their closet. I never went near it, but just knowing it was there made my skin crawl. That night, we had been drinking downstairs. Nothing extreme. I was a good drinker, and I'd never hallucinated from alcohol in my life. No drugs, no weed, just alcohol and exhaustion. Around 2 a.m., we all headed upstairs to sleep. For reasons I still can't explain, I refused to sleep in the spare bedroom that night. Instead, Jess and I took the couch in the living room. Bella and Ben went straight to their bedroom and passed out almost immediately. Jess fell asleep beside me within minutes. I stayed awake, scrolling on my phone, the house settling around us. That's when I heard the voice. At first, it was muffled, garbled like someone talking through a wall. A man's voice, quiet but constant. I tilted my head, listening. Then my stomach dropped. It sounded like Ben. Bella had mentioned before that Ben talked in his sleep sometimes, so I tried to brush it off. But as I listened closer, I realized the sound wasn't coming from their bedroom. It was coming from the spare room. That didn't make sense. I hadn't heard of Ben sleepwalking, and I couldn't understand a single word he was saying. It was his voice, but wrong. Flat, distorted, like it didn't quite know how to sound human. I stood up, my phone flashlight shaking in my hand, and walked toward the hallway. The closer I got, the louder the voice became. I could hear movement now, boxes shifting, something scraping against the floor. A vacuum bumped softly against the wall. I whispered his name. Ben? The voice stopped instantly. Complete silence. I stood frozen in the doorway, my light flooding the room. It was empty. No Ben, no movement, just a bare mattress on the floor and stacked boxes casting long shadows. I took a step back. The voice started again, louder. I called his name again, sharper this time. It stopped. My heart was pounding so hard I could hear it in my ears. I didn't know what else to do, so I walked past the spare room and opened Bella and Ben's bedroom door. They were both there, Bella asleep, Ben beside her, snoring. I stood there, trying to convince myself I was still drunk, that my brain was misfiring, but I knew what I had heard. I made it back to the living room and sat beside Jess, my flashlight aimed at the hallway. The hallway was shaped like an L, with the corner blocking my view of the bedrooms completely. I stared at that corner. The voice came back. This time, it wasn't alone. I heard sounds from the kitchen, from the bathroom, from the far end of the living room, creaking, dragging, like something heavy being pulled across the floor. I was barely breathing. Then I looked back at the hallway corner. Something was standing there, a tall, black figure, too dark to be shadow, too solid to be nothing, leaning just far enough around the corner to face me directly. It was only there for a second, but that second felt endless. I grabbed Jess so hard she screamed awake. When I looked back, it was gone. The voice had stopped. I was crying, hyperventilating, barely able to speak. Jess didn't believe me at first, until the noises started again. Her face drained of color. She grabbed me and stared at the hallway, listening. That was how I knew I wasn't imagining it. We turned every light on, locked the doors, sat together shaking until the sun came up. When Bella and Ben woke up, I demanded answers. Ben swore he never left the room, never woke up, never spoke. Bella confirmed it. I thought about something I'd heard before, about mimics, entities that imitate people you trust to get close. I don't know what it was, but sometimes I wonder what would have happened if I'd stepped into that room. And what still haunts me is that the voice stopped every time I called his name, almost like it didn't want to answer wrong. I'm 21 now. I've never experienced anything like that again. But sometimes, late at night, I hear my name being called by a voice I don't recognize. Maybe it's insomnia, maybe it's memory, or maybe some doors don't close all the way once they've been opened. If something ever speaks to you in the voice of someone you trust, think twice before answering back. Some things don't want to be seen. They just want to be invited closer. This story is about something that never announced itself. It didn't knock. It didn't speak. It just watched and waited and ran when I noticed it. I've never really talked about this in detail before, but lately I've been watching a lot of creepy YouTube stories, and it made me realize something unsettling. What I'm about to describe isn't just a memory from childhood. It's something that has followed me for most of my life. The strange thing is, my earliest memory of it isn't even mine. When I was around 6 or 7 years old, my brothers went to a sleepover at our cousin's house. I didn't go with them. I was always a loner, even as a kid, and it didn't bother me. I stayed home like usual. When they came back the next day, they were noticeably shaken. They told me that late at night, while they were trying to fall asleep, they saw something outside the window. Not an animal, not a person. It was tall, skinny, completely white, faceless, just standing there, watching them from the darkness. My cousin's house already had a reputation. Everyone in the family knew it was haunted. There were countless stories tied to that place. Sounds, shadows, things moving on their own. But whatever my brothers saw that night stuck with them. And after they told me, it didn't stay at their house. It came into our lives. My first direct encounter happened when I was about 8 years old. We were living in a trailer park at the time. The living room had long windows along one side, giving a clear view of the neighborhood outside. At night, those windows felt more like mirrors than glass. One evening, my brother and I planned to sleep in the living room. He was sitting on the couch, playing a game on the TV. I was nearby, on my laptop, half paying attention to the screen, half listening to the game sounds. At some point, I looked up. Outside the window, standing perfectly still, was the same thing my brothers had described. Tall, skinny, unnaturally white, no face. For a split second, my brain refused to process it. But the moment I actually focused, really tried to look at it, it was gone, vanished. I told my brother immediately. I expected him to laugh or brush it off. He didn't. He believed me without hesitation. From that point on, I started seeing it again, and again, and again. But something changed. It wasn't just watching anymore. Every time I caught a glimpse of it, it was moving toward me, running. I never saw it clearly while it moved, just flashes, peripheral glimpses, a streak of white, always rushing in my direction, disappearing before I could fully turn my head. It was as if it didn't want to be seen clearly, only felt. I never asked my brothers how their experiences changed over time. I almost didn't want to know, but for me, it felt personal, like it had chosen me. Years passed, life changed. Due to family problems, I moved out of the county I had lived in my entire life. And something strange happened. It stopped. For the entire time I lived away, I didn't see it once. I didn't feel watched. I didn't think about it. Eventually, I forgot it existed, until I moved back. After returning to my home county, I saw it again, only once or twice, but enough to remind me it had never left completely. The difference was distance. When I saw it now, it seemed farther away, still running, but no longer as close. The most terrifying encounter happened last year. I was sitting on the couch in the living room, doing nothing important, when an overwhelming sensation washed over me. That unmistakable feeling of being watched. Not imagined, not subtle, heavy. I slowly looked toward the source of the feeling. Up the stairs. There it was, peeking at me. It wasn't running this time. It wasn't fully revealing itself either. Just enough of its shape to confirm it was real. White, tall, still faceless, staring, just staring, for what felt like forever. Then it slowly pulled its head back out of view. I haven't seen it since. For context, I come from a family deeply familiar with the paranormal. My aunt owns a collection of haunted dolls. My brothers have had their own unexplained experiences. Strange things were never unusual in my family. I'm 51 now. That last encounter happened shortly before my 51st birthday. I've had many other paranormal experiences throughout my life, but this one stands out because of how long it's lasted and how it seems tied to specific places. Even now, writing this causes a familiar sensation, a pressure, anxiety, headaches, the feeling that something is paying attention. I don't know what it is. I don't know why it followed me, and I don't know why it runs only when I notice it. But sometimes I wonder if it ever stops running, what happens when it finally reaches me? If that sent a shiver down your spine, remember, the shadows are never empty. More stories like these await you here on Stories Channel. Subscribe, turn on notifications, and watch closely, because sometimes what watches you from the dark isn't just imagination. Until next time, stay alert and don't let the silence fool you.